Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. We welcome you to another edition. We're excited to be here with you. Are you excited to be here with us? That's going to be the question that Jonathan and I always ask. Is there anybody really listening to the amazing conversations that we're having? I have in the studio with me two individuals and a third that's in the camera. But I want to say hello to the producer, John being the place to be. What's up, John?
You're talking so fast.
Am I really?
The energy's up today.
I'm excited. It's called saccharin. But you also see in the stream, if you're listening via social media, you see Mark Bassett all the way out there from the sunny shores of California. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, now, great. It's looking like it's going to be another nice day. I'll probably head down to the beach after this. So
He's gonna body surf and boogie board, and what else you gonna do, Mark, on the beach?
I don't sit around on the beach. I go for walks or I go body surfing, one of the two. And the water is probably 58 to 60 degrees, so I'm not in there for more than a half an hour. It starts to get pretty cold after that.
I mean, I wouldn't be getting in because it would be pretty cold. But see, that's different, Mark, because I tell you, we tropical people over here. We got to have those warmer temperatures. What's the weather like on the West Coast?
I'd say mid 60s, sunny for the most part. I think it's going to get up into 70 degrees, sunny later in the week.
Jonathan, should we share our good fortune with him?
I know you guys are in the 60s. I keep tabs on Midland.
It is beautiful.
By the time this airs on Sunday, it will be significantly colder.
It'll be 45 and snowing again.
Yeah, I've lived in mid-Michigan for 20 years. I know how it rolls.
So good to have you on today. But we also have with us, and I don't know why, maybe it's just us, Jonathan, but whenever anyone comes in and they sit in that chair, they always sit there with the microphone right in front of their face, like they're hiding behind the mic. What is that about?
Looks fine.
You can't even see his face.
There we go.
There we go. All right, there we go. Now we see the boyish good charm.
Helping out for the social media stream there.
We have for those who are in the social media stream and those that are listening, Gordy Garris. Gordy, welcome.
Hello.
You get to speak, Gordy.
All right. Hello.
He had like radio fright. He just looked at the mic like it's not going to speak for you. You got to talk into the mic. But I'm glad to be with you guys today. And for those of you who are listening, excuse me, on WSGW 100.5 FM or 790 AM, we certainly thank you for tuning in. And then to our good friends down there in Joliet, Illinois at WJOL, we certainly welcome you to the conversation. Salute to those of you who are in our social media stream. We certainly are always excited to have you a part of this conversation. And I am glad today because we're going to talk about the diversity of worship. And this is funny because Gordy doesn't know that I'm going to put this spin on it. Uh-oh. But as you all know, we have these amazing conversations on race in America. And so today, Gordy is, would you say worship leader, Gordy?
Yeah, I'd say so.
He's a worship leader, artist, music producer, Christian singer, songwriter, all of those good things. And
what churches are you at? A particular church, Gordy, out of curiosity? Or
so I've served at a few different churches and still do so. I serve with the Potter's Touch Ministries with Pastor K. That's how I ended up here, obviously. But I've served elsewhere too with Radiant Church. They have churches all over the state, and I've been a part of their worship team for a few years now. I help out with them. So
very diverse background. So I want to allow us to hear some of his music as well, Mark. And we're going to talk about it because you're kind of, how would you describe what you are, Gordy? Would you say Christian rock?
Yeah, like I would say Christian rock, probably alternative. The reason I say alternative is because there's a lot of different sounds that my sound can encompass and does encompass.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of blues and some other things. And but Mark, what I was thinking about is the diversity of music that we have all the way around. Because when I think about, whenever we talk about, music, we always thought this is country or this is that. But we don't ever talk about those infusions. When I heard Gordy play, I thought it was interesting. First of all, he plays keyboard and the guitar
and the bass, drums, and then sing, obviously.
So he thinks he's a low-key Prince. You are not Prince, okay? Prince is one of the greatest of all times, played every instrument. But what I do love about Gordy is he's got very, especially when it comes to worship, very interesting lyrics, I think, and he kind of has the ability to minister to a younger generation. And having this conversation with a young producer in-house, I just thought that this was very interesting. So, and I thought about the Catholic Church, Mark, and how I went to a Catholic church, and this was very different down in East Lansing not long ago. A friend was there, and they were playing, they had drums, and they had, I was like, is this a Christian rock concert?
Yeah, that's pretty atypical, frankly, of Catholic. I mean, you see that occasionally, but it's not typical.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see how as people we worship a little different, and we're going to talk about the differences, I think, between worship and what you might see in a black church and what you might see in white churches, and how there is such a big difference. And I think that you've experienced both, Gordy.
100%. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I always like to talk about what's hot off the press. And on today, first of all, I want to give an update. I shared with you guys, and we talked about this before, about Dr. Dan Osborne. And so, Mark, he was listening when we were last talking about him. And so I am meeting. We're going to go over and have dinner this coming Friday and sit down and kind of talk about, just things and just get to know him and his blended family and some other things that are going on, which I think is going to be very interesting. I'm excited. Now, I do have a question, Mark, and I want to throw this at you. And Jonathan, I want to get your opinion as well. We know that the conversation that we've had up until this point between Dr. Dan and I has been about reconciling, if you use that term, what has happened with the Catholic Church, what happened with the Catholic Church and my ancestors as it relates to the whole slavery thing, right? And finding out that whole thing with the GU 272. So we had an amazing conversation, and we've come together. So he is now the proud father of a beautiful daughter that he adopted. She's an African-American daughter. And he said something to me. He sent me an email, and I think that he was trying to figure out how to best say it. But he said, I just like people just say it. And so he was, and I'm summarizing, and I'm not giving you word for word. But hey, my daughter isn't really aware of this conversation. And so, we want to find a time when we can, sit down and have this conversation with her, because she's an African-American as well. And so that she can understand how to still love her faith or love Jesus, so to speak. And this not be an issue to, cause her to dissent from the church. And that was just kind of, just light preface. I was like, oh, by the time we're eating at 5:30. So that's kind of how it was. How should I take that? Like, how should I feel about that? Because what do you guys think? What do you hear in that statement, just generally?
I think the best construction on it is you had an issue.
Yeah.
You hit a mental roadblock. It caused a bump in your faith, which we all come across. But it was
not a bump in my faith.
Your bump with the
Catholic Church,
with the relationship with the church,
yep.
And assuming that this girl is being brought up in the Catholic Church, that could lead to problems with faith.
Yeah,
especially for a younger person. And so,
because she's only like 8 years old.
If I haven't had a problem, if I haven't encountered that kind of an issue, and I'm talking with someone who has, and who I'm right now working through that issue with, putting myself in his shoes, I can see it as hey, I want to breach this subject. You've been through this thought process. You're currently working through this problem for yourself. How do you think I should approach this for a child?
Okay. All right.
I have a different spin, I guess, of like, ultimately, I would ask, well, why do you want to have that discussion now? And what good will come of it by having it now?
Wait a minute. So no. I didn't ask to have the conversation.
No, if I were sitting in your shoes, I would look at it from a somewhat different perspective. And I'd actually ask Dan of like, why do you want to have such a conversation now? And what do you hope to achieve by it? I mean, because
no. Hold on. Time out.
Yeah.
Let me make sure. Dan did not suggest that we have this conversation.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what
Dan
you said.
was. I think he was kind of saying, "Hey, hey, you know how you have the guys around. We have a conversation, and we say something about my wife. Hey, I hadn't talked to my wife about that. That kind of conversation was more like, hey, I haven't talked to my daughter about it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, let's not.
Okay, so what I would say to Dan if I were in your shoes is like, well, why do you want to? Because I'm not. You and I are fundamentally different. So like,
absolutely,
religion. Religious people, church. Ultimately, it's people, and every religion has skeletons in their closets because ultimately,
it's in your closet.
Yeah, it's a collection of people, and so I would be like, well, let's talk more about. I would be more interested in talking about moving forward, not digging up things that bad people did in the past, and how can we work together to do something positive going forward. Like, why? Let's not talk about something like this with your 8-year-old daughter. It seems premature to me. Maybe that's just my initial gut reaction.
Okay, that's okay. So, Jonathan, I feel like can you get on camera when you speak? Because I feel like there's the voice of God that's speaking somewhere. You can't. Okay, not today.
Not today.
Go ahead.
You totally derailed my train of thought there. It might not be the right time to talk to an 8-year-old about it, but when you see that something like this has had such an impact on someone to the point where Kareem is approaching Dan and saying, I need your help working through this.
Yeah.
Am I assessing the situation?
Yeah,
right?
no, that's exactly what happened.
Then I can see trying to prepare as a parent. I can see him trying to prepare himself for if this conversation comes up, prepare his daughter for what happens when she runs into this. If she learns this information on her own, the way Kareem did, what's it going to do for her faith? What's it going to do for her relationship?
Now, see,
to me, the crux of the issue isn't that, okay, the Catholic Church, I mean, it is in a sense, sold slaves and had slaves. But today, I mean, there's abuse going on in every church. There's Catholic priests abuse. And so there's,
Mark, but I'm not talking about the abuse of I'm talking about something that's very, this is home. We've come all the way down. Like, we're not talking about world issues. We're talking about.
I understand. I mean, but you're talking about, Dan potentially wanting to have this
No.
Spitballing ideas of how to have that conversation with his daughter.
No, I think you missed that. I think you missed that, Mark. So that's what I want to make sure.
All right.
I wanted to have this conversation with Dan. We've never had a conversation about his daughter being a part of the conversation.
Oh, okay.
He simply meant, since we're going to be over for dinner on Friday, he simply kind of just threw in a note. It was just kind of like a subtle hint in an email. Hey, by the way, I haven't talked to my daughter, about these racial issues or the issues with the church. I think it's best to solidify her faith, and then we'll deal with these other issues, as she matures.
So both me and Mark are digging way too far into this.
Yeah, you guys are, but not so much. But I want you to understand. I'm asking how, because I feel a particular way about the question. I'm gonna be very honest, and I'm gonna tell them, how I am, Mark. So I'm gonna say I feel a particular way about the question, and let me tell you why this. Because I do understand that she's 8, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I also understand that she's African American. And so I see it from a different perspective. At what age does a child get to understand who they are and their identity and where they're from and their history, the beautiful, the good, the bad, and the ugly? And I think that those things are so important. And this is an interesting conversation. And Brother Dan, Dr. Dan, I hope you're not upset because you are named in the conversation. But I think that I talk about what happens in my life, right? And I don't think that this is a bad thing, but I think that this is one of those things that probably happens all of the time, and is why I think it's important for us to have these conversations. So my issue is, she's a young Black girl. Why should we shield her from history and what exists? And this kind of goes in. The reason I'm bringing this conversation, because they've had this conversation a million times in Florida. They're having it in Texas about how we portray and what we share of history, right? And so my thing is, and I understand that she's young, and I understand that her dynamics in terms of her family situations are different. But a part of me kind of felt like at 8 years old, I kind of knew that I was a descendant of slavery somewhere down the road. At 8 years old, I had questions about where I came from, beyond my grandparents. At 8 years old, it's a topic of conversation.
Yeah, that to me, that's a different conversation than what I thought you were asking about.
Yeah. So now that you understand, Mark,
Yeah.
I just kind of want to, because I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be beautiful to have her adoptive family, who's a white family, they're involved in the Catholic faith, and a black man. Now, I want to correct something, Johnny. I wasn't having troubles working through the issues of the church enslaving my family as it related to slavery, but really the church, as you were saying, like I want to be clear, how can people of faith do these heinous things? That was the issue that was at hand. So, and I understand, hey, you got to raise your child and you raise children in the way that you see fit. But I also think that there has to be a sensitivity that exists because you're raising a black child who needs to understand those things. And sometimes I think the best answer is sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes people make bad mistakes. Sometimes we do things wrong. And I think that and I'm glad that we're having this because we're having it as a child. This is the part of that slavery conversation that I think that white people are afraid of. And in this particular moment, I think that, blacks aren't trying to turn the tables, aren't trying to do, and we talked about this before, Jonathan, we're not trying to harm, you because you harmed us. We're not trying to redo and, reverse slavery. That's not the issue, but it's really just getting to a point where say, okay, we understand the atrocities. We see these exist. How can we, make things better from where we are and build a pathway for it? How powerful would that be to have her dad and someone that has built this new relationship based upon that history with their father, having these conversations to help bring what I think a healing presence and an environment where this young black girl not only understands her faith, but she also understands the legacy of where she has come from a young black child. So that's just my thoughts. What are you guys thinking? I mean, does that change? Do y'all think I should be feeling some kind of way? I don't mind throwing it out there and having this conversation with y'all. But go ahead, Mark.
Ultimately, you have the right to feel the way you want to feel.
Absolutely. I'm not looking for, authorization to feel. That's not what I'm saying. But in my mind, I also want to challenge my thinking, with somebody who may think differently than I am and may see things from Dr. Dan's.
I mean, ultimately, it's Dan's call. Obviously, it's Dan's call. What kind of discussion or message he wants to deliver to his child.
Yeah, he the daddy. Yeah. You are the father. Yeah.
And he might have a different understanding of his relationship with you than you have. He might think you fulfill a different role than what you think you fulfill. Coming over for dinner, I'm assuming this is one of your first times interacting with the kid, right?
Absolutely. I've never met. And so so you're absolutely right. You got some strange man coming in the house. You ain't been having this deep conversation. You might go off the hook, off the cliff on it. Yeah. Okay.
I can see a few months down the road on your third, fourth, fifth, whatever time over for dinner or whatever, if it happens to come up in conversation, kind of breaching that subject. But I can totally see from a perspective of, hey, you're going to meet my family for the first time. Let's cool off a little bit. We've been very real with each other. We've been talking about these very difficult conversations. They're not ready for that. They're not there yet.
No,
they haven't been along for this conversation.
And that's why I wanted to throw this across to my two white brothers, because we can hash things out and have conversations and really talk about some of these difficult things. And I just want to make sure that my perspective, and I like to challenge myself all of the time, because I have a tendency to say what I feel. so it's probably better that I work these things out now, so that we sit down. But no, I looked at it from that perspective as well. And I think, Jonathan, you bring up a great point. And you're right, Sharice Steele Phillips. You're right. Excellent advice. I would not put my 8-year-old child in a situation to have such an important conversation. I get that. I just wanted to make sure, like, am I feeling some kind of way? And I didn't think so. I didn't feel that way about him when we were having this conversation. But I thank you guys for insight. And I'm really excited, Mark, about just sitting down and talking with him, because he is a very interesting person. And I think it's going to be great. So I'll
tell him I said hello.
Yeah, we talked about you a little bit, Mark. He's like, Mark's a great guy. Yeah, I know Mark. We talked before he went to California. I'm like, yeah. We'll follow up with that conversation. I think that you guys have given me some very important stuff to think about. All right, now on to the not so important things that nobody's really excited about, but it is in the news. So it is official. The Biden Trump rematch is a real deal thing. It's the real deal Holyfield, right? And so we have this rematch that
Does anyone want it? I mean, I guess the people who voted in the primary want it, I guess, but
no, nobody wants this rematch.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, when you run out of, if you're coloring a picture as a kid, and this is the best I can come up with, you're coloring a picture as a kid. And now for me, we would always want to paint our pictures of our little kids and people as brown people, right? That's my brown people world. When you run out of your brown crayon breaks or it's no longer working or you lose it, you don't want to be, even though we call ourselves black people, we're not really black people, but there's no other choices. So you take black, the black color crayon, and you color the people in as black, which is not what you wanted, but it's the choice that you got, and you do what you can with what's on the table. This is
the worst. Since I've been voting, I can't think of a less than. The first thing that came to my mind was I'm not going to vote, and then it was like, okay, I'm going to vote for an independent, like I did in 2016 as a protest vote. But then that's just wasting a vote, and you know how I feel about. I don't like Joe Biden. I think he's a horrible president. I think, put it kindly, he's 25 years past his prime.
Only 20?
But I feel so negatively about Donald Trump. I may be forced to once again vote for some guy I could never in my wildest dreams imagine voting for.
Let me offer an alternative.
Oh, here we go.
Alternative.
Here we go. Have you heard?
Here's the other white meat
of Robert.
Literally
of Robert F. Kennedy's possible running mates.
Oh my gosh!
Aaron Rodgers, who's named Jesse Ventura, has been brought up. Can you imagine?
No, I cannot imagine that.
Yeah.
What a shakeup. Come on.
Someone said that they always put their own name in the blank spot, and so they vote for themselves.
That's a good idea. I'm going to vote for myself. At least I got one vote for president of the United States.
Hey, you can go down in history.
Yeah.
As a candidate that got one vote in an actual presidential election.
I wonder how many of those there are.
That's a good
Probably
question.
A lot.
You think there's a lot?
A lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So as we look at this, so we have an election coming up that lacks inspiration. There is no progressive thinking individual that's in the mix. We got an old dude.
Two old dudes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They're the same age, literally, almost.
Yeah, almost.
We got two old dudes that are battling out. One spends too much time in the tanner. Now he's orange with brownish orange hair. The other one, I wish somebody would give him a tanning pass. And I mean, come on, aren't you supposed to like juice it up when you get ready to go into the political scape? Like, get a little tan, color your hair a little bit, look a little bit younger.
I think he did.
Oh, that's the result.
That's as young as he can look, Kareem, with all the help of all the professionals. That's as vibrant as he can be.
And I don't want to, if my grandmother or my grandfather, my grandparents were alive and they wanted to run for president, I'm like, okay. I wouldn't want to bust their bubble, but at the same time, where are the grandkids saying, Grandpa, you're too old to be president? For both of these guys, to tell them, hey, we want to spend some time with you. You got to think about that, the opportunity cost of being a politician. And, being 80 years old and thinking you're going to be around 84, at both of them, that time that they're losing with their children and their grandchildren, which could literally be, the final years of their life. We're not trying to wish death on anybody, but it's a real thought. Grandkids need their grandparents. So think about it, old guys, as you guys are running for office. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Gray on WSGW.
This is Kareem, and we're back with more United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. And Jonathan, I don't think that we've shared with our listeners that are out there, our millions and millions of listeners across the country, about our good fortune or the possibility of good fortune coming. Why don't you share, Jonathan?
I have no idea what you're
On
talking
April the 1st, 6th, there is something going down at the Michigan Broadcasters Association.
Oh yeah, we did share that.
I thought we
Yeah.
shared it with Mark.
You shared it last week.
We
I
shared it
thought.
on
Well, let's share it again. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
We have been nominated by the Michigan Association of for the Michigan Association of Broadcasters Excellence Award in Best Regularly Scheduled Team or Personality for Market 2, I believe, commercial radio.
Yeah. So
What's Market 2?
Size.
medium size.
It has to do with medium-sized market. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. How many competitors do we have? How many other people are nominated?
There's quite a few.
Okay.
I don't know. There's 2 nominees that make it through the process of submissions, and the other one is also a WSGW personality.
Yeah, and
produced by yours truly. So
also
Who's
produced
that?
by,
Who is it?
it's Art Lewis, so I can't really take
Okay.
credit.
So
Art's won enough awards. We need to win one.
So I'm gonna let's give our consolation speech right now. We want to thank all of those who listen and to the association for allowing us to stand next to Art. Art, congratulations. So come on, it's time for a black man to win an award. No, it's great to be here, guys. Let's. I love you guys, by the way. Okay, you guys love.
We
me?
love you too, Kareem. Or at least I do. I don't know about Jonathan. But
I just said it. I'm gonna say it again.
He said it. I stopped twisting his arm, so he's done talking for now. All right, so I want to get to our conversation today, and I think that it's interesting today. One of the things I think, and I'm a pastor, and I don't always talk about church stuff when we're on the air, but I think that it's interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about the diversity in music and worship and how that plays a role. We have my guy Gordy Garris, who is here with us on today. Gordy, give a shout out to everyone. They see you.
Hello, everybody.
So Gordy is a multi-talented. He plays a musician, plays a number of instruments. My favorite, which is the acoustic guitar. I have an acoustic guitar. Electric guitar was given to me. I purchased an acoustic guitar, and I think I've learned all of 3 chords of a worship song over the past 12 months.
I mean, you only
what do you
need
need, man?
only need
right?
3 on
Only
a lot of
music,
songs,
3
and you're good.
chords.
But you got to be able to play those 3 together. But Gordy, you come in, and I just, first of all, congratulations. What do you do? I mean, you're here in the Saginaw area, but what is your 9 to 5? What are you doing for work?
So I actually, I've been a registered nurse through the whole pandemic, through the whole thing. I did that. I've been doing that for 6 years now.
What hospital are you at?
So I work for My Michigan Health. So
Okay.
I'm out in Midland, and I've been there quite a while. This would be my 4th year working there. Great hospital. I can't speak highly enough about that organization and what they do for the community. It's a pleasure to work for them, and the culture there is very unique. It's uplifting. It's so nice just to go into work and punch in, and everybody's in a good mood.
You're winning if you can say that about work these days.
Yeah, I mean, stuff happens. You have your bad days just like you do any job. But like as far as being a nurse goes, in my career in all the different hospitals I've had a chance to be a part of as an employee or just an outside member, by far, I think that's the best one in the area. And that's not a biased opinion just because I work there. I've come to that conclusion.
It's your opinion. It's
Sure.
biased because we haven't worked there and you go there. So it's a biased opinion. But I want to talk a little bit about your history. I know that we met not a long time ago, and you were playing. How did you get introduced to music?
Music. So I actually, music for me came to me at a very young age, and that mostly had to do with the fact that both of my parents were musicians. My mom actually is who got me into nursing. She's been a nurse for 33 years. God bless her. She's great. Shout out, Mom.
Go Mom.
Yes. She's been my biggest fan my whole life, biggest supporter, besides God, right?
Right.
But for me, the upbringing was the big thing. Having 2 parents, that's how they met. They were musicians. My dad was in a rock and roll band in the 60s and 70s, pretty popular one. They're called the Frost.
Okay.
And he kind of exposed me to music at that young age. I started playing guitar when I was 9.
Wow.
And then bass guitar not that long after. Acoustic kind of followed around that time too. Started piano around 13. And then I was singing basically that entire time. I would sing, in the car with my mom and going places. And when I got into high school is rough, y'all. I mean, who wouldn't agree with that? It's not exactly that nice of a place to be. People are mean, but I wrote a lot of my songs when I was in high school. That's when I started songwriting.
So when people made you mad, you wrote songs.
Oh yeah.
What
When that girl didn't like
days?
me,
She didn't like me. I'm going, you should have loved me. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so how do we get from the convergence of faith and music and this whole, because you're performing and people are actually having you come and sing, and you got a whole
churches at all
album
different
and
places.
things. Yeah. So how do we get to this place?
How do we get there? So for me, my faith began at a very young age. I took God as my savior when I was 7.
Wholesome conversation here.
Of course. Don't be ashamed to talk about him. And
Were your parents religious? Obviously, if this happened at 7.
Yeah, I would say both my parents were and are. My dad obviously no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago, but for him, that was kind of his rock. I mean, he would read scripture to me almost every day, and he would have Family Life Radio and all the Christian music on almost every day on the radio. So I got exposed to that at a very young age too, and that kind of unknowingly shaped my music outlook. So I grew up listening to a lot of alternative rock, pop. A band that I kind of grew up on, I would say like Coldplay, and you can hear a lot of that maybe in my music and the sound. But as I got older, I kind of shifted away from that. I never really truly would have called myself a secular artist, but I went and I played shows and I toured the country, and I did that vein of the music industry for almost a decade. I got tired of it. It wasn't really working for me. I put out 4 different records. None of them really did a whole lot. And it wasn't fulfilling, So, and when I got done with that, I decided, okay, this isn't working. I got to try something else.
So you got in. So faith becomes a preeminent part of your life
at a young age.
At a young age,
right.
You're playing this music now. How did you begin to make the transformation from? There's a difference between Christian music and there's a difference to worship music.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick with a question, Kareem?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you so you were touring kind of secular music, didn't work out? Did you then come back and decide like, okay, I'm gonna be a nerd, find a different career? And then did you put music down for a little while? And then
that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I actually never really stopped doing music.
Okay.
Nursing was something that kind of was underlying the entire bed of music my whole life. I graduated high school 2012, and I never stopped going to school. Okay. And I'm still going. I'm actually going to be done in June with my master's degree. But
so while you were touring, you went and you got your nurse's degree in between, and
in between playing music and recording albums.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you are now a worship leader. I'll say that, and you've done this in a variety of places. What have you noticed as the major? So when you came, have you done other Black churches before TPT?
No.
Okay,
no.
So this is a new experience for you.
Oh, 100%.
All right, now I'm going to tell you.
Join TPT.
How long has it been since you've been there?
October.
So October.
Coming. October.
I've been there a couple of times, as you know, Kareem, and I don't ever remember seeing them. So
he's our new white guy. Yeah,
but I'm no longer the token white guy that shows up every so often.
We got a couple of you now, Mark.
Okay.
But the thing that I love about this is when I was growing up in music, and it's funny because when we go and we talk about church, and we all are people of faith, and we've had this conversation between you and John and I, Mark. We all are people of faith, but we all understand that on Sunday, if we're looking at the most segregated time in America, it is at 11 a.m. Sunday morning. Right? We go to our Black churches, our Mexican churches, our white churches, and we do our thing.
Yeah.
I grew up as a kid, and this is real honest admission. And I remember I was dating this girl. I'm not going to tell you her name, and she loved Christian I don't know if you call it Christian music.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and they would have all of these words, and they would be saying all of this stuff. And she's like, "Oh, I love this song." I'm like, "I don't like that white music. I don't like it's got. I'm a gospel kind of guy, you know. I've been Kirk Franklin, that soulful stuff.
Yeah.
And I never got into it. And I'll tell you, as I really began to deeper my relationship with God and really become more worship centered, I began to understand the draw that white people have in their music. And I'll say it like this, and you tell me if there's a difference, Gordy.
Yeah.
I think in terms of how I would classify, and these are my thoughts, Black music is about a spiritual, soulful connection through the worship experience that you're giving to God, right? And it's just this electric feeling. And the way that I would always see white music was, and there's a difference. Y'all might not like what I'm saying, but trust me,
that's true.
is that when Christian artists or white artists would sing Christian music, it was about how they thought of God in their expression, and they would write it in words, and they would share, like, this is.
Have you ever heard like a Gregorian chant? I mean, I know where you're going, and but like if you listen to like Gregorian chants, obviously they're fundamentally different than gospel, but in a certain sense, I get the same feeling from a Gregorian chant that I do, as gospel, in terms of just kind of the emotionality and the spirituality of it.
Yeah. And so, but this is the thing. So as I grew in my being more worship centered, I began to understand that words matter.
Right.
So how you place words and how words are shared. And so I started listening to some songs. My first guy is, first, Jars of Clay was one of the first groups that I would listen to.
Sure.
But then the, what's his name? He talked about rain, or the white noise. White noise. Can't think about it anyways. But anyways, I would listen to these artists, and I would start hearing their words. And then I would be like, hey, that's a nice song. And so I started taking these Christian songs that were set to the 1 and 3 and put them on the 2 and 4. And you see a lot of gospel music now is borrowing songs by, is it Michael W. Smith?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
And other artists that are out there.
Yeah.
And they were just putting it to a different tune. I love the words. So when I heard the song that you played on Sunday, he sang a couple songs on Sunday. The lyrics were absolutely amazing. Where do you get, and first of all, have I, in your experience, because you played in both churches,
right?
What has been your experience?
I feel a stark difference between the two, and it's not a bad thing. I was just talking to one of my friends about this the other day, just in the difference between the two churches, the feeling, even with the music.
You're talking about like a white church versus a black church? Is that what
you're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. So the white church, people are very emotional, and the music is almost intended to bring you to tears and make you cry. I don't feel that in a black church, and I never have. I don't know if I ever will. I feel like it's a celebration. I feel like everybody's happy, and the music is intended to uplift your spirit. I
never thought about it that way.
I think there are songs in the white church that are capable of doing that and do that. It's just, it's much more of a uplifting experience, and just in the black church, it's just so happy and uplifting. I mean, from the moment I walked into TPT and walked in the door, I felt love. And it's not to say I didn't feel that in the white church, because they're some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life there. But it's different.
Well, and I say
this conversation reminds me of that Dave Chappelle sketch with John Maher.
I love Dave Chappelle.
but I was gonna say this. I was born, raised in the black church my entire life. When I was in transition between when my pastor, Bishop Pryor, died, and then trying to figure out like what's next, where am I gonna go next, and what I'm gonna do, I spent some time going to one of the white churches that are here in the community. Yeah, and at Hopeville, if you're here,
sure,
Hopeville,
yeah, still there.
Amazing, and that I grew an appreciation even at Hopeville, which was very worship centered. And then I attended. This is crazy. I attended a church that was largely Hispanic. Pastor
Protestant.
What's that?
Was it Catholic or was it a
They were Christian. It was a Christian ministry. Pastor David Osuna, and the name of the church was Spiritual Therapy. And being in that ministry, very Christian, very different still. And there was the influence of Christian music and, you know, the Hispanic culture. So I spent a lot of time. It was probably about a 2.5-year period that I was in these two places of worship. And I was really impacted by the words of those songs. Yeah. And I think that is the thing that I love in white music that's what I love about country music. That's what I love about the blues. And I now began to find that in Christian music, it was the center, the focus on creating lyrics that do in fact conjure you to think, conjure emotions. You said it in a way that I couldn't been able to. Brings you to a place where I don't think to make you cry, but bring you to a place that you reflect on who you are
and what God did,
and reflection of who He is and what He's done.
Exactly.
So you will cry when we look at those things. And so I thought it was really interesting. When you write your lyrics, where do they come from? Because if we can leave and we go out maybe on something that he plays, that would be awesome, Jonathan. Yeah. But where do your lyrics come from? Where do you derive them from?
So my whole life, I would say it's life experiences. But now that I've stepped into this new role as a musician and a songwriter, it's not about that anymore. It's about God and His Word. I will literally crack open a Bible and I will write from Scripture. All the songs on this new record that's coming out in July, the record's called Go With God. All the songs are Scripture based. It's the first time in my life as a songwriter I've ever written based off of a book.
Yeah. You know what was interesting? Because I think this is the album that you sent over, and I was listening to a number of the tunes on there. Okay.
Yes.
What was interesting is that when I was listening, I was like, okay, I heard like a little Coldplay. Yeah. I heard some classic rock in there. I did hear a little bit of what was it? Not Jane's Addiction, but what's his name? Name
this tune.
Hello. Who wrote this song? And the lights out, we're just dangerous.
Oh, that's Cobain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I heard, yeah. So what would he be considered? Would he be considered grunge music?
That's more. Would you say punk rock?
Was that like the grunge? Grunge, classic grunge.
Okay, so I heard a little bit of that in there, and it was kind of interesting because the music had something that offered to everyone, but what it was consistent were the lyrics, and so I really appreciate that because as someone who is really it's still a journey, and those of you who are listening, like this whole thing is a journey in terms of growing into who you have become or becoming. And it's about surrendering your heart, and having songs that minister to your heart is such an essential piece of what you do. We're gonna, if we could preface this song.
Yeah, I'll give a word quick on it. So Whole Again is a song I actually wrote from a couple different lines of scripture. One, namely Psalm 23, verse 5-6. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil so that my cup overflows.
Okay.
Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. Dwell in the house of the Lord forever, right?
The chorus of the song says, I'll praise your name.
I lift your name.
I lift your name.
I give you praise.
I give you praise.
Just like a cup.
Just like a cup. You fill
me up. You make me whole again.
Me whole again.
That's right.
So appropriate. Mark, as a musician, Mark has, and I'm not
a musician, so.
You're a person who loves music, right? You're not a musician. You don't play anything, but you have a very impressive music collection. When you think about music, what is the most important thing? Because I'm a rhythm guy. For all my life, I've been the beat guy.
Yeah.
And people like, what are I didn't know any of the words.
It's the feeling I get. Like a lot of times, I don't even know what the lyrics are, but it evokes a certain emotion, or it touches me like deep down inside. So it's just the feel of the music. I tend to like emotional music, and the lyrics don't mean a lot to me, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's how I am. And so that was the thing. So Mark, you just said what I was saying earlier. I am the person, like I hear a beat, I'm like, bam, I'm on it. Like that beat is bumping. Like I love that. Or chords and strings. And I loved it. And so the words were not as important before. Most of my favorite songs growing up as a teen, I only knew the main chorus because I never knew the lyrics because I was like caught up in the rhythm of the song.
Yeah.
but I'm understanding the importance of lyrics and the fact that words have such a powerful meaning, and that they have the ability to really just kind of put and set an atmosphere in such a way that it recalls a time and a place and a memory. And so that is why I think, Gordy, when I was listening to your music, I would really like to hear some of these things, and no issue. But in terms of a worship experience in Black culture, we change it up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Add a little bit of flavor, put some stank on it, and then bring it to God in terms of a worship song. Jonathan, are you really a worship person? Are you a music? You're a scripture guy, I think.
We are the opposite when it comes to music. Every song I listen to, I'm picking apart the lyrics.
Really?
And thinking through them and working through them and separating them entirely from the music. When it comes to church music, I am an old, cranky German Lutheran.
What does that mean,
Give me my hymnal. Give me the great hymnal with the great old church lyrics in them that are built on centuries of history and scripture, and I'm happy.
Really?
100%.
So are these,
like I said, Jonathan's an old man at heart.
He is an old man. That's why he gives old man wisdom when he's talking.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jonathan, are these songs coming from hymnals or?
Yep.
Okay. Every now and then I like to pull out a good old hymnal and sing a hymn from the book.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting about hymns, Jonathan, that I really like, it's interesting that we're having this conversation, but is that hymns are the same almost in every religion.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, if someone pulls out a hymn, I can almost know the song. Now the beat is going to be different, or the tempo may be a little different, but it is the same song. And I said that because there are songs and music that has the ability to unite us as worshipers. Yeah. And the one place that I felt most united with my white brothers and sisters, my counterparts, has been in worship experiences. And I've done that in New York City at Times Square Church, where there was 6,000 people all in the same place worshiping and praying, and they played those hymnals, and everyone in the place knew the song. You just had to get used to the tempo or the rhythm or how it was organized. Right. But it was something that unites us. And I think that this is so important, because as we look at where we're going with this election and this crazy matchup again, we find so many things and so many reasons to be divided. There's so many ways for us to hate the person on the other side of the aisle. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of reflect, take a different stance, and learn that there's more that brings us together than really divides us. And Jonathan, I need you to know, how much time do we need before we put that song in? Can we go ahead and listen to this as we go out? We're going to leave out of here. Gordy, I want to thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course.
And once again, the name of the song that we're going to play as we leave out of here.
Whole Again.
Whole Again. You fill me up, you make me whole again.
I stand in awe and wonder all my days how you could take a prodigal soul, change their ways. You take the lost, you take the broken, take all their pain, take all their pride, take those hardened hearts buried deep down inside. When I fall down on my knees, you bring me back to my feet. I lift your name, I give you praise.
All right, this is Kareem with Straight Talk. We certainly thank you guys for tuning in. The artist is Gordy Garris. We want to thank you guys for continually coming in. Conversations of Race in America. God bless you all. As always, take care of yourselves and each other. Grace and peace.